Good morning. Welcome back to this fourth installment of my favorite conductors. Today, Otto Klemperer. Klemperer is one of the most important conductors of the 20th century. His career lasted many years, but he is most famous for the last 25 years of his career and his long association with London's Philharmonic Orchestra. The German conductor was born in 1885 in Breslau, back then it was in Poland, and died in 1973, aged 88 in Zurich, Switzerland. Questions are always asked about his long career and why it is broken into two halves and seems so lopsided. An easy answer: illness. Klemperer was a protege of Mahler, and an early success was his music directorship of the LA Philharmonic. But during this successful time in LA, he developed a brain tumor. It was removed successfully, but like all cancers, even successful treatments, it can leave inevitable reminders. The operation left him partially paralyzed on his right side, which followed with long bouts of severe depression. This, combined with his bipolar disorder, these were very tough times for the great conductor. After convalescence and the conclusion of the war, Klemperer returned to Germany and began his comeback. After working with the Berlin State Opera, he then moved to London and began his long, fruitful association with the Philharmonic Orchestra. The Philharmonic Orchestra was founded right after the war by EMI producer Walter Legg, hubby of Elisabeth Schwarzkopf. Legg had EMI money behind him and grabbed all the disaffected London players, and along with conductors such as von Karajan, Cantelli, and Furtwängler, made the orchestra the envy of all the musical capitals. Even Richard Strauss and Toscanini wanted it. Finally, a London orchestra, financially sound, no wartime problems, the top players, a cushy EMI contract with the best engineers, producers, and locations that could compete with Berlin and Vienna. One of the record recommendations I'll show you later has a very interesting story behind it. One that shows the cutthroat nature of London orchestral life. 5 orchestras, still 5 in this savage age, all fighting daily for survival and a full diary. Quality work is the key, and for over 20 years the Philharmonic with Klemperer was the gold standard. He wasn't a first-choice conductor for everything, with Central European classical and romantic repertoire his strengths, but I've heard his Bach and love it, even 2 outlier recordings. The Stravinsky Symphony in 3 movements and Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique both have things to offer, primarily the Philharmonia playing standards and the EMI engineering. Klemperer, mainly because of his afflictions and unbending standards, was a renowned grump. He didn't say much in rehearsal. I'll link to 2 videos where Yehudi Menuhin describes his style exactly, and another with Klemperer doing some podium pounding. But on the whole, from what I heard firsthand, the orchestra had huge respect for him, especially after he saved their bacon. That story coming up. My first-hand knowledge was from the famous Philharmonia bassoon section, both of whom taught at Trinity when I was there. The legends, Cecil James on principal and Vernon Elliott on second bassoon. Oh, the stories in the pub after chamber music rehearsals. They mainly centered on Klemperer's personality, where he called Bruno Walter a moralist and himself, in direct comparison, an immoralist. I'll leave it up to your imagination what he meant by that. One story Vernon would tell was about Klemperer's very shaky beat, especially accuracy on the all-important downbeat. A lifelong smoker, Klemperer once fell asleep in bed and set the house on fire. Luckily, his daughter, who cared for him, discovered the fire in time, but it left Klemperer, along with all his other ailments, a badly scarred right hand. So he compensated by threading the baton through a hole that was left between the thumb and forefinger. However, the shake continued. The remedy? Vernon said the orchestra played exactly as the baton made its way from above his head and met the button from the bottom of Klemperer's waistcoat. It worked. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff. Some of the greatest recordings in history, not just performance and technically, but with Klemperer great insight into the great composers, their musical desires and needs. With Klemperer, as you listen, you experience this great line, great phrasing, and it often just creeps up on you. Of course, because his recordings are legendary, pricing for clean vinyl copies are through the roof. So, like me, they'll be down to streaming, CDs, or other fine versions by other conductors. So let's start with streaming. Streaming kind of kills two birds with one stone. First, if you don't know much about Otto Klemperer and you want to try it out before buying, it's a perfect way of getting in pretty good sound, seeing if you like his interpretations. I've got 2 or 3 suggestions to stream. I'm going to save his Beethoven, Mozart, Bruckner, and some other things for CDs and vinyl. But you should definitely start with his Brahms symphonies. They're absolutely wonderful, very indicative of Klemperer style, very large, steady tempos, kind of massive sonorities with very rich sounds that the Philharmonic can conjure. And these were done in stereo. A lot of his stuff was also done in mono, but these are the stereo versions. And they're in high definition on Cobos. Cobos is a great program because it really has a lot of repertoire that is has been remastered to up to 196. So if you get a chance to, if you have Cobos, wonderful. I think they probably do this on Deezer and other ones, but you won't get super high resolution on Apple Music. So definitely try the Brahms. I think you'll really enjoy it. They're wonderful performances, right there among the top sets I can recommend. Another romantic composer he is associated with is Schumann. And his Schumann is exceptional, very much like his Brahms. Schumann and Brahms were very good friends. And in many ways, they're very similar. Schumann's orchestrations always get a lot of criticism, but I don't think they're that bad. I've played Symphony No. 1 and 2 and 4. I never played the Rhenish, and I found them just delightful to play, beautifully written for the instrument, for the flute. And our conductors that I played it with certainly loved the orchestrations. But anyway, this one recording he did of the Spring Symphony, which is a lovely symphony, and the first symphony, the early symphony by Schumann, is very beautifully done. So now let's get to the compact discs. Now, the reason I have these compact disc recommendations, and I'm going to do 2, is because I can't afford them on vinyl. You can't get them. These are Columbia recordings, early EMI, before EMI was EMI, done at Kingsway Hall. This is Symphony No. 4 by Bruckner and Symphony No. 7 by Bruckner. Both of these are very expensive on near mint vinyl. So the best way to do is get them on CD, and they're very, very good. If you get them on mono LP, they're much cheaper, but I've had this discussion with others. Bruckner's big music. It needs a large resonant sound. Bruckner was an organist, and he developed a lot of his symphonies from his organ playing, and they have that kind of sound. You need a big resonant acoustic. And mono sometimes scrimps and scrapes with the soundstage. So I would not suggest getting these in mono. And they're widely available on compact disc. Not quite as good as the Columbia vinyl, but you'll get a good idea. His Symphony No. 4 is probably, I don't like to say the best, but I think it's the best version around. He does things with the introduction, which I've spoken about on other videos, just exceptional. The French horn player, the very important French horn player for the opening solo is Alan Civil, one of the world's great French horn players. And then when the flutes, oboes, and the rest of the woodwinds imitate what the horn does, Klemperer does some things with that phrasing that is just, to me, remarkable and has not been imitated by anybody else. And it's not even in the score, I don't think. Crescendo here and there, but what Klemperer does with it, how he lifts the phrase, and it's so beautiful. And I don't think anybody else has done it. Anyway, certainly not as well as he has. So Bruckner 4, I would definitely go with Klemperer. Do not, under any circumstances, get the High Q Abbey Road reissue on vinyl. It's dreadful. I don't like to use that word where artists and engineers are giving their heart and soul to get a good product. But for a lot of them, they just rob the recording of its energy and life, buoyancy, and beauty. I wish I had better things to say about that because it's inexpensive and it's, good vinyl, and it's just not good. So stay away from that. Better to get it on compact disc. And there's something you never hear me say. Get the compact disc over the pristine new vinyl. And the second Bruckner symphony that is not available on vinyl at anywhere near a decent price is his very beautiful Bruckner Symphony No. 7, played with the most beautiful line from the very opening on the French horn and the cellos. I spoke to you about Klemperer and the way he does the long lines, especially in romantic music, and it's exceptional. The Columbia vinyl stereo is very, very expensive. It's a 2-record set. Comes along with Siegfried Edel, a very beautiful performance of that. And these are the recordings, the 4 and the 7 that my father had when I was very young, when he would play us these recordings and tell us stories, kind of imitating the Jericho paintings that were on the front covers. And my brother and I, my twin brother and I, my identical twin brother and I would sit and look at each other like, well, I guess this is good. Dad's telling us a story. This should be fun, right? But we got something out of it, but I'm not sure what. But anyway, I'm glad my father sowed the seed. Anyway, you can get this on compact disc. Highly recommend it. I have two, because I prefer vinyl, I have the Bruckner 4 with Boehm, which is, I think, amazing. And I have the Bruckner 7 with the Vienna Phil and Schulte on Decca. Both are very, very good, but they do not supplant Klemperer. Klemperer is tops in these two symphonies. So now let's get to vinyl. First up is this absolute beauty of a recording from Kingsway Hall. It's the Schubert Two Beautiful Symphonies, Unfinished, and Symphony No. 5 in B-flat, with the Philharmonia in stereo. An absolutely delightful record. I think they call that the Half Moon. But this is Sachs 2514. Let's see what we've got here. And much like his Schumann, his Schubert is, again, beautiful lines. The unfinished, my goodness. The oboes and clarinets in the beginning, exquisite. Great players, of course, that can do it. But a very, very beautiful record, this. This is not that expensive on Discogs. I think I probably got this for $30 or $40 shipped. So, and there's that magical Columbia label. This is the label that was just prior to EMI. If you don't know Symphony No. 5, it's a little bit like Mozart, a little bit more harmonically advanced, maybe. Not maybe advanced is the wrong word. Maybe harmonically adventurous is a better word, but it is an exquisite piece of music. It's so beautiful to play. It's so beautiful to conduct. It lays under the baton so beautifully, the rhythms and the tempos. Highly recommended. Everybody knows the Unfinished, rightly so, because it's a masterpiece. But the Symphony No. 5 is also very, very beautiful. This record is a great coupling. Now to Bruckner's Symphony No. 5. Another masterpiece by Bruckner. Beautiful symphony. Equal of the 4th and the 7th. This is Klemperer, notice, with the New Philharmonic Orchestra. And I'm going to be talking about that when we get to the final record today. And why that happened. And a little bit of a story behind it. But this is a wonderful symphony, again, there's the man himself, with this incredible line that he creates. This is a Sachs Half Moon, Sachs 5289. It's a 2-record set. I got this from Australia. It took a long time to get here, and it was not cheap, but it was worth it. And the reason I got it is I had it on CD for a long time. If you can't get the vinyl and it's too much for you, get the compact disc. Standard EMI compact disc. It's outstanding. It's so good. The beginning of the slow movement, which is a very unique movement by Bruckner. If you look at the score, it feels like it's in just steady quarter notes, eighth notes, or whatever, but it's actually in triplets. And then this syncopated oboe and bassoon solo comes over the top, and it's just wonderful. It's a magnificent movement. But just after the beginning of the oboe starts, you hear the air conditioning come on at Kingsway Hall, and it's really quite loud. So the CD is good for that. It's really very low noise floor, and you can really hear that. But this record has, the warmth from this record is spectacular. The opening after the pizzicato strings, you get the brass chorale, and with violins doing this magnificent fanfare type figure. And man, the way Klemperer does that, worth it for the price alone. EMI, there you go. And printed at Hayes, Middlesex, at the EMI record plant that I used to pass every day on the train going from Paddington to my hometown when I studied in London. Now to the very, very famous Beethoven 9 symphonies. So Klemperer has Bruckner under control, Brahms under control, Beethoven, Mozart, Schubert, Schumann. His Mahler is very good too, and you're going to hear about one of those in a minute. You're getting the idea about the impact this man had on 20th century orchestral playing. That great Philharmonia Orchestra. It was basically a marriage made in heaven. When they started the Philharmonia with Legg, he recorded these in mono, a whole set, and it's wonderful. If you get them cheap on mono, you'll really enjoy them. But this stereo set is very, very special. Let's have a look and see what's inside. So you get a booklet. The 9 symphonies, a 9-record set. My set is mint, except for Symphony number 6, which has some real problems, unfortunately. My favorite symphonies in here, not only as far as the music is concerned, but also the performances, the Eroica and the Symphony number 7. Both magnificent. They're all good. You can choose anything. His 5th is good. His 5th is not quite as intense as the famous Kleiber, but it's very good. But his Eroica is as good as the Furtwängler Vienna mono, which I have, which is another exceptional recording. Anyway, this is what they look like. The postage stamp. And this comes with the prefix box, BOX 78801. And it's a 9-record set. It also comes with overtures, which are great too. And now finally, to our last selection. This is my favorite Otto Klemperer recording. This is Mahler, Das Lied von der Erde, the Song of the Earth, with Klemperer conducting the Philharmonia Orchestra and New Philharmonia Orchestra, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, with Christa Ludwig, alto, and Fritz Wunderlich on tenor. There is no better recording of this piece, no better performance. It's a classic in every way. This is the stereo version. I just got this. But have a look at his master's voice, or EMI, or even Angel there. What are all 3 companies doing on the label? They were recording the last movement, and Walter Legg came in, I think during the break, and disbanded the orchestra. I mean, he owned it. EMI owned it, and they disbanded the orchestra, much to the players' chagrin. The players' committee got together soon afterwards and asked Dr. Klemperer, would he mind taking over the orchestra, and they're going to call it the New Philharmonia. And he said, okay, which is wonderful. So for the next 6 or 7 years, I'm not sure how long, it was the New Philharmonia. Eventually they got the name Philharmonia back. But there's a place in the last movement, just as the mandolins come in, where the violins take the melody. I'll show it on the screen. And if you listen very carefully, the sound ambience changes dramatically. And that's where, even though they were both recorded in Kingsway, but they had different recording engineers, and I'll put that on the screen as well. And what happened was that they just couldn't get it exact. It's a pretty close match, though, but once the performance continues with all those great musicians, you forget about that very quickly. It's a magnificent performance. And there are other great ones with Bruno Walter conducting and Bernhard Haitink conducting, but nothing compares to this, in my opinion. So this is a great one on vinyl. Esoteric have a wonderful SACD of it. Very expensive. But this vinyl, this cost me about $50. You can see the 3 labels there. The licensing must have been a nightmare after Legg disbanded his master's voice, EMI, and even Angel for the States. But this is pressed in Great Britain. The Made in Great Britain is what you're looking for whenever you get these albums. There it is right at the bottom there, Made in Great Britain. Classic and brilliant sounding. So that's it. You can listen via streaming. You can still get his CDs very easily. And of course, there's still vinyl to get. However you're listening, I think you'll really enjoy his conducting if you're not familiar with it. If you are familiar with it, I know that some of those recommendations I think you'll really enjoy. So that's it. Have a great day. Please keep watching. Please keep subscribing. We really appreciate that. And we'll see you in the next video.